the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
You turned that quite quiet there, Joel. The
I did,
sound suddenly went.
Yeah, just been a bit. Look, I could stop it all together. I could start it again. You know what I mean? We just mix it up here on the podcast. Who knows?
I love it.
I'm Joel Osborne. He is Sam Hardy, as always. We're coming to you on all major podcast providers and on YouTube. And this is episode number 39.
You always introduce me as Sam Hardy, as always. One of these days, I'm going to go and get my name changed. You're going to introduce me as Sam Hardy, as always. And I'm going to be like, no, mate. Name's changed.
Well, I tell you what, you've got an episode coming up where you're actually going to be skiing, aren't you? So you won't be around. So I'm going to have to do this solo.
Dial me in, mate. Dial me in from the slopes.
Dial you in from the slopes. We
Yeah.
actually have a really good episode planned for that week as well. So I'm not going to tell you who we've got for that one, but I've been planning ahead on podcast episodes now.
First time for everything, people.
Yeah, I think this episode today was planned in about... Well, I think I planned on about an hour of pre-notice today to get this episode sorted. But we're here, and we're here on all major podcast providers and on YouTube as well. So great episodes coming up in the future as well. We're actually starting to plan some stuff here. And obviously no game for Flyers last weekend, so we had a rare weekend off, didn't we?
I know. I mean, and there's no, and you know, I work with the City, with City and Bed as well. There was no game at home either, mate. So I had a whole weekend of nothing.
Yeah, same here. I just literally absolute weekend of nothing. I sat down. I watched the BBL Trophy final on Sunday, which we'll get onto later on.
Yeah, nice.
In the podcast. Incredible game, and it was a great weekend. So can't complain. Obviously, a busy weekend this weekend though. Of course, 2 games against top of the league and a battle for second against the Leicester Riders. It is a tough weekend coming up for the Flyers.
I think this is the weekend we've been waiting for, Joel. It's a sort of like be-all, end-all, big things happening. This could be a sort of like league-deciding weekend, Joel, and I am ready for it.
Yeah, 6 weekends, 6 games left of the regular season before the playoffs get underway. Of course, this weekend could really determine where Flyers end up in the regular season standings. And before we introduce this week's guests, we had a great comment come through on YouTube from none other than Thomas Bell's mum.
Oh yeah,
because of course we had Thomas Bell on the podcast last week, and she's obviously listening from overseas, and it was all a Mean Green themed episode, and she left a comment on the episode, and it reads, she goes, "This podcast is so entertaining. I truly enjoyed the recaps. Zach Simmons popping in, and the questions were on point. Good job, guys."
That's nice. I like that. We got a worldwide audience here, Joel. Mainly here and some from America. That's basically it, though.
Yeah, I think we've got to take that comment there with a bit of a grain of salt. 'Cause of course, it is Thomas Bell's mum, so of course she's going to be an amazing fan of the Flyers podcast.
I disagree. I think it's just quality content, Joel. That's what I think.
But we've got to get TB's mum to come over and watch a Flyers game, because we saw how good Tevin Ollison was playing when his mum was in attendance a couple of weeks ago. So what's it going to take to get TB's mum over, maybe for the playoffs or something?
Oh, we'll see. Let's see.
We've got to give a shout out to UNT as well, by the way. I don't know if you watched it last night, but off the back of our episode last week, of course, they had their big game in Vegas, the NIT semi-final last night against University of Wisconsin, and a massive win for them. They were trailing by 14 points in the first half, and they rallied back in the second half. And here's a look at some of those highlights. I mean, this is an amazing game. They held Wisconsin scoreless for the last 9 minutes of regulation.
That includes free throws and everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, they didn't make a free throw, they didn't make a field goal. 9 minutes of solid defense. They're the number 1 defense in the nation, and they always say, you know, their motto, and it's come through to some of the Flyers players from North Texas this year: toughest team wins. And this is the last play of the game. If you're watching on YouTube, they were down by 2. They had to get a shot up, and just tough-nosed, hard-nosed defense, diving on loose balls.
2 of them diving on the floor there.
North Texas advancing to the final of the NIT, which is on Thursday. I think it's going to live on BT Sport as well. If you've got BT Sport, you can watch it on BT Sport. It's on ESPN in the States. And yeah, great game. So make sure you tune into that one. I think it's going to be a late start there. That's the
what sort of time are you talking?
I think last night's game tipped off at midnight.
Oh gosh,
it's that time of the year, mate, where I try and get into playoff mode. My body clock changes. I turn into NBA time zones, and start watching a lot of overseas basketball. But now, shout out to North Texas. They of course advanced to the NIT championship game on Thursday. They face UAB, the University of Alabama, of course, a team in the Conference USA as well, so a team they've met already this season. So best of luck to everyone from Bristol Flyers in that game. Right, time for us to introduce this week's guest. And of course, it is a big weekend of action on the cards. 2 huge games against Leicester Riders and the London Lions. Of course, Friday's big game is that battle for second place. So we've got a couple of guests. We've got a bit of podcast inception for you. 2 podcasts coming together into one. A big podcast preview ahead of that game on Friday against Leicester Riders. They're dialed into the studio all the way from Leicester. It is none other than the hosts of the Leicester Riders Podcast, Along for the Ride, Greg and Mark Ellis. Fellas, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Good afternoon, guys. Good to see you.
Here they are. Look, they're in the Morningside Arena right now. If you can see, if you're watching the video version on YouTube, you can see the fellas are sat in the arena right now.
It's costing us a fortune to hire this, just to do this, to come onto your podcast. So, there's a cost of living crisis. So we're spending a lot of money hiring this hall just to do this.
Well, you think you're paying a lot. We're at Ashton Gate Stadium, mate, hiring that. We've had to hire the whole 27,000 seater here. So we're losing right now.
Awesome. Fellas, thanks so much for taking time out of your super busy schedules to join us here on the podcast. Of course, we've got you on to help us preview Friday's Flyers v Riders game. But I've got a bit of a confession to make here, and you guys weren't actually the first choice for Sam and I. We originally asked Ant Rowe to come on the podcast. He was super busy with his schedule, unfortunately. So we got you guys instead. You guys are super subs.
Anyone that watches the live streams know that we're normally second choice to Ant anyway most weeks. So we're kind of used to that.
Yeah. I mean, we refer to obviously Daniel Radcliffe and Ant Rowe on our podcast. We refer to them as Ant and Deck for obvious reasons, a real play on names. So they're Premiership broadcasters, and we're more
Panorama Conference,
that type of thing. So that we're not offended by that.
Obviously, you guys host the Leicester Riders Podcast, Along for the Ride. We're bringing 2 podcasts together here. That we're not competition. We're all working to grow the game here in the UK. How long have you guys both been involved with the club for, Leicester Riders?
Ooh, do you want to go first, or shall I go first?
I can't remember when we started, so probably you better have started.
Yeah, well, I suppose I've been following the club for about 32, 33 years.
Whoa.
I know. Were you even born then, Sam?
32 I am, so just about.
So that shows you how old I am. And Greg, obviously, is my son. He's been following him since he was a wee baby. So he's 30-something as well. So that along, we've been around the club, supporting the club, doing lots of different things.
That's amazing. And obviously, you guys now host the podcast. I listened to you guys on the live stream last night for that game against Plymouth. How long have you guys sort of been doing that kind of stuff for, like the podcast, and how did that sort of first come about?
So the podcast started this season for us. Mark's a big fan of the Milwaukee Bucks for his sins, and they have a podcast that follows specifically the Milwaukee Bucks, Locked On Bucks, and I guess it came out of that. He wanted a podcast for just the Riders so we could talk about our team a little bit more regularly.
That's awesome. And how are you guys enjoying it? Imagine it's because obviously I did the same with the broadcast for Flyers, and obviously we host the podcast here, and it's just so much fun, isn't it? Like it doesn't really feel like you're doing work. Do you know what I mean? It's just so much fun just being involved. And literally, our job is talking hoops, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I guess this is our first season doing it, and it's one of those things. It probably takes up more time than you imagine when you set out, and it does take a bit of time to pull it all together. And like yourselves, I'm kind of always chasing coaches or players for a comment or an interview. So just knitting that all together takes a little bit more time, but it is a lot of fun. It's not really work.
Yeah.
Well, I should be in the office right now doing other work, so I'm loving this job.
Yeah. Well, I'm very lucky. This is our job to do this podcast.
Your job, not really my job.
I just dragged Sam along from the commercial team out of the office. Say, right, come on, we're doing podcast now. I need someone to talk to. Fellas,
Can you just let us know? Can we just let us know we need to invoice for this time for us?
Yeah, you can send it through to us. We'll make sure it's all sorted.
If you just send it over to Steve Lansdowne, that would be great.
Fellas, obviously, this kind of we all met in person, didn't we? At when when Riders came to visit Flyers earlier in the season, the first game of the season, and it sort of all came about, didn't it? When on your podcast you made a comment about Sam's hair over here. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, some of it was just based on because I'm a certain age and I've virtually got no hair left, and Greg, as you can see, is kind of modelling his appearance on Gareth Murray with the beard.
It's grown since Sunday, just in his honour. So.
Yeah. We did notice, crikey me, initially when we kind of checking out other podcasts as we do, and we're happy to give shout outs to the podcast. We noticed, crikey, Sam, is that
Joe Scott.
Joe Scott.
Yeah.
And we had to double check it, and that's when we spoke to you, Is it Joe Scott really? He used to play for us.
Well, I think we've got a picture of Joe Scott we can put up on screen, producer Dan. And there he is on screen now. Joe Scott behind us. Uncanny.
I think I said it before.
It is, isn't it?
He's genuinely a beautiful man, so I am just going to take that. Like, I'm very happy to be compared to him, Joel.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. So, no, that's great. And
the sun-kissed Californian.
He should almost be on a surfboard rather than a court, shouldn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then the podcast friendship just sort of started from there, really. So it's great to have you on. We did speak about doing this crossover episode at some point, so it's great to finally have you on and join us here on the podcast. We've got you on today to preview Friday night's, the big one, Friday night's game. It's Leicester Riders versus Bristol Flyers. It's that big battle for a second place finish in the league table. But before we kind of dig into the game, I kind of wanted to get like your view from an outsider of how you think the Flyers have been getting on, because it's easy for people like Sam and I to get carried away with how well we're doing this season. But I just wanted to get like an outsider's view, and obviously there were the preseason picks. I don't think many people were expecting Bristol to be up competing where they are right now. But what have you made of the Flyers season, the both of you as a whole so far?
Annoying, because they're making it hard for us to finish high in the table. They've been really good, and I think I've been really impressed with the depth that the bench provides, and in particular, I'm a massive fan of Jelani Watson-Gale. If he ever wants to wear red, he will look brilliant in red, I'm sure.
So I think we kind of think of him as the Connor Washington, which hopefully is a very, very heartfelt compliment.
I have loved Connor Washington ever since. I feel a bit sorry for him this year because the injuries he's been carrying have been such a shame, haven't they?
Absolutely, he's a big miss for us, and kind of one of the things we really miss his kind of on-court leadership, coming off the bench normally, but he provides us with that boost and juice. So he's been a big miss for us this season, no question.
Obviously, at the time of recording right now, is a big battle for second place. Of course, Flyers 21 wins, 9 losses. Leicester Riders are right there. They've got 2 games in hand on the Flyers. Both teams on 9 losses. What kind of game are you expecting on Friday between these two teams?
Well, we've kind of figured it out. Clearly, if you look at the 3 meetings this season, it's the first one to get to 91 wins. Because if you look at the scores, the winning team has scored 91 points.
Every time,
which is uncanny.
Yeah, that is. I mean, I've got on my notes here. I didn't even pick up on that, by the way, when I was doing my notes. But obviously, both teams have played 3 times already this season. The season series, Flyers currently lead it 2-1. But of course, but of course, you guys had the big blowout win earlier on in the season. I mean, the first meeting, Flyers came out on top 91-85 at SGS College. That was back in October. A big game from Jelani in that game, 18 points to lead the way.
Yeah.
And then we played again. It's like 2 weeks later, basically. It was at the end of October at the Morningside Arena, and that's where Leicester came out on top, 91-73. And that was against a short-handed Flyers squad. We haven't been full strength at the Morningside. I think there was no Mike Miller and no Thomas Bell in that game as well. And those are 2 guys for us that I feel are a big impact. You know, your starting point guard, and Thomas Bell is an absolute workhorse this season in terms of the effort plays he makes on the offensive glass.
He's clutch,
finishing around the rim, and just being a pain to guard on the defensive end. He's one of those players that can be a bit of a mismatch nightmare. Almost, we speak about it quite a lot, but I don't know if you remember Rafael Thomas Edwards, who played for us last season, but almost the sort of Rafael Thomas
Leicester
Edwards Mark
boy.
II. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Leicester boy. He used to love playing Leicester Riders, didn't he? Obviously, the 3 games, it's gone in the way of the home team. But obviously, Flyers haven't played a full-strength team at the Morningside just yet, so it could be a very interesting game. And but you say that obviously the season series is 2-1 to the Flyers. However, that win over the Flyers at your place back in October means that obviously if you do win the game on Friday, that does give you guys the head-to-head. And when you look at sort of the league standings and everything right now in terms of where both teams are, that could be massive if both teams are sort of joint at the end of the season, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, it's almost like having an extra win in the locker, because I think ultimately it's going to boil down to just us two for second and third. I don't think Manchester can get there, if I'm honest. So it's a massive thing in playoff positioning for that first round in particular.
Well, if we were just talking about it there, like Sheffield have turned into a monstrous team right now, and depending on where they end, is actually a dangerous for whoever's out of us guys, whoever ends in the position that could potentially play them. It's a dangerous like series to play, isn't it?
I'll tell you what though. Like you look at like any playoff matchup this year, like Caledonia just won the trophy, for example. Like they're just a tough team. So like Caledonia, like Cheshire in the trophy final, like we match up against Cheshire really well. Like that's a really close game every time. So there's no easy games in this sort of race to the playoffs. So although like we're both looking at finishing second and third, there's no easy games in the first round of the playoffs. Anyone can beat anyone. I think that's what makes the league so interesting this season, is that, you know, and here's a prime example. Like both teams, Riders and Flyers, coming off a game against both of our last games were against Plymouth City Patriots. Of course, you guys played them last night. We played them a week ago on Sunday. Flyers, we beat them by 39 at home, and when they came to you guys, it was I watched the game last night, a really close game in the end, and you guys able to edge it by 3.
Yeah, big play at the end by Jibril Adekoya. He won the game. That was winning play. So Plymouth had an opportunity to win that game, last shot, thinking they were going to get something, and Jibril comes up with that great defensive play, which seals it for us. But it was very, very tight, and it was very much squeaky bum time going down the stretch.
Yeah,
I mean, let's be honest, Elvisi's a magician at times, isn't he? And he had the ball in his hands, and you're right, big defensive play, but he could have also done something and tied the game up, couldn't he?
Yeah.
We're big fans of LVC and what he can do, so we're always aware of the threat that he poses.
Yeah. How big, as you mentioned, like Adekoya, and of course I know he's been sort of battling injuries recently, but how big has it been for you guys to have him back in these last couple of games or so?
It's really big. I mean, I think, we've kind of struggled with injuries throughout the season. We mentioned briefly before about losing Connor, and that's a big miss for us in that point guard role. So that's been a bit of a hole we struggled to fill. And of course, people forget a little bit about Big Mo Walker, that big presence. He's been a massive loss for us this season. So again, that affects our front line. And with Jibril, who certainly can step up and play big minutes in that position, he's missed a few games for injuries. So we've had gaps and problems with injuries throughout the season that has affected some of our results, no question. However, saying that, we're still winning season, we've still got opportunity to finish second, been to the cup final, so it's still been a great season for us.
Yeah,
I think we obviously were talking about not necessarily Riders so much, but Yui played against the. I'm
glad you mentioned bringing this up. Yeah.
But we were talking about how like even Pat's missed quite a few games as well, hasn't he? Or he's at least had reduced minutes more recently as well. And he was obviously in Team of the Year last year, and then is not able to be at his full potential the whole time as well. Like you have had some injury issues for sure.
Mm. And to be where you are right now, I think is that credit to the whole system that coach has got in place up in Leicester. Like everyone knows their role, and also a big thing that I was going to sort of mention as well is that people are forgetting the whole Gino Crandall departing. Like you built the team around Gino to start the season. Gino Crandall gets bought out by the German team. You bring in players to sort of replace him, and ends up being Kimball McKenzie sort of stepping up to that starting point guard role, who was with you guys last season, and he's really been effective this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, how good has been Kimball McKenzie, Greg?
Good enough to win Player of the Month in March, so pretty good. And what he brings is a lot of energy, a lot of pace to the game, brings tempo, really great at getting to the basket, but equally can shoot the ball as well. So he provides lots of different threats on the court. Makes him hard to guard. Hopefully he'll be hard to guard on Friday.
Got lots of nicknames for him as well. Obviously, we refer to him as Nimble Kimball. I don't know whether you've got time. We refer to him as the Butcher as well.
Okay, why is he called the Butcher? Let's hear it.
Okay. Early in the season, we were away down playing in Surrey, and he got caught in the head. So he'd got a laceration. So he had to leave the court. And as you do, we got bandaged up. So he got this headband, and it began to leak a bit. So he was, if you're old enough to remember Terry Butcher, the England, that famous photograph of the bleeding kind of head. That's Terry Butcher. So we refer to him as the Butcher, as an honorary thing to playing through cut heads with bandages leaking blood.
Nimble Kill the Butcher.
I love that. That's a great. We were watching. I know I mentioned it a second ago, but me and my wife were watching the UE the Loughborough game, and she's like, "Why is Mackenzie there? He's like a 40-year-old man." I was like, "Helen, you know he's like 25," and she's like, "What?" She's like, "I don't like him anymore. He doesn't make sense to me now."
Is she just prejudiced because it's not got the hair like you've got, Sam? Is that?
I don't know what it is. It made me laugh out loud. Whatever it was, I hadn't really thought about it. But yeah, it was well funny.
I like the moustache, to be honest.
Yeah, the moustache.
It's a bit of a throwback.
Yeah,
yeah, it definitely is. I feel like you're watching like semi-pro or something like that. It'd fit perfectly into like that team.
I think it's a vibe. I'm here for it, Joel.
I can see you do something like that, Sam. To be honest with you,
if this ever gets really, really, really thin, the tash is coming, the hair's going, and that's what's happening.
And then we'll put Kimball Mackenzie up on the screen, and you can look just like him.
Yeah.
When I grow up, I want to look like Kimball.
Love it. Yeah. Amazing.
Sorry, I'm going to say he's definitely in the conversation for our player of the season. GB International was the MVP in that Bucks game. It's been playing awesome for us.
Yeah, and also I think, having like the Gino thing, the Devontae Bandu injury as well, and then him sort of stepping up to the plate. I mean, it just shows that sort of next man mentality you've got in that team right now, that players are ready to have a different role, because obviously it's a much different role to the one that he had last season for your team.
He also, I don't think you won in the end, but I was watching you versus Lions in London, and he seemed to be the only player who was going at them, and he went at them so hard, and I was just like, go for it. Yes, Kimball, I'm loving that. So I don't think he came out on top in the end, but it was still a great performance by him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. It was really good.
He's certainly got he's got that aggressive streak within him. He's always looking to put pressure on defenses. He will challenge defenses, and he's super quick, so he can get to the basket, even though he's not 6'8",
and he is 40 years old.
Great stuff. Fellas, obviously we've spoken about Riders, and their key players. I guess we sort of chat about the Flyers, because it is the Flyers podcast. But we'll chat a bit about sort of Flyers. I mean, in terms of, you mentioned Jelani Watson-Gale, of course, like probably one of the pickups of the off season, probably across the league, and in my opinion, in terms of new players coming into the BBL. But in terms of like other players that you feel could be big threats or big factors in this game, who are your ones to watch from an outsider's point of view?
I guess interesting, threats versus factors. Shall we go factors first?
If you want.
So we've got a strategy in factors, just based on stats. We're going to play the stats game. So we're just going to foul Dave Delpesh a lot, aren't we?
Yeah, 47%.
47% from the line. So we think it's like a lottery ticket every time he goes there. So that's the strategy we're going to get.
The old hacker shack strategy.
Hacker Delp.
Yeah.
Hacker Delp.
Yeah.
Although saying that, his percentage is a lot better than Marcus Delpesh, who has the much worse sort of. If you ever watch Marcus Delpesh and how high he arcs it, Malcolm has the smoother stroke, so to say.
So that's the strategy. Obviously, he's a great rebounder, and he's a presence down low that you've got to pay attention to. I mean, can you go much further than VJ King?
VJ King, standout player for me. Threat inside, threat outside. It causes us He causes problems with the mismatch, because do you guard him with a bigger guy to stop him inside, but then he probably beats them off the dribble? Do you go with a smaller guy, but then he bullies you inside? He's difficult to put anyone against him, really, and he's proven throughout the season that he's a standout player.
Well, we think you guys have actually, in having Loving is a good matchup for him, because he is a big, tall guy, and also, but like, can guard the perimeter and the rest of it in a way,
Yeah, he's certainly long. I think get him in the post, and he's not as effective, I think. So if you post him up, I think that's not his strength. His strength is certainly on the perimeter for Mark Love, and obviously he's a massive threat from out there, as he showed last night against Plymouth. In the post, that's where it probably struggles a little bit.
Yeah, and you mentioned sort of BJ King and kind of like how hard it is to sort of put the right player on him, but I think especially when you see a lineup from Flyers that involves him and Thomas Bell together, do you put like you're Loving, for example, do you put him on Thomas Bell? Do you put him on BJ King? Whichever one you do, I mean, it's sort of pick your poison, isn't it? And I think that's where Flyers are sort of their strength is, especially on the offensive rebounds. You got if VJ King's not grabbing an offensive rebound, it's Delpesh. If it's not Delpesh, it's Thomas Bell. Even the guards are rebounding. Like Mike Miller is like super active on the offensive glass, especially those long rebounds. And a lot of positions on the court, I feel like we do have that kind of that height advantage as well.
Yeah.
But then saying that, you guys have got Aaron Menzies sat in the middle, so it's
He's
always
pretty tall.
Yeah.
If he can stay out of foul trouble, then hard work for us, I'm telling you.
All 7'3" of him.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think he is kind of refereed a little bit hard. And I think because the BBL referees, if we want to talk about them, don't often see a player like him in this league. So big, centre, traditional, if you like, perhaps more of a European type of centre. So I think he gets undue calls sometimes and they don't always appreciate what he does do. He occasionally picks up fouls that I think are a little bit harsh.
Yeah, well, it certainly will be a tasty matchup. And we haven't even spoken about players like Zach Jackson, for example, who probably gets the quietest 15 points a game in the BBL this season. Because when you think of Leicester teams, especially in like last season, you think of your Genos, do you know what I mean? Those sort of star players. But Zach Jackson just quietly goes about his business and is a real threat. And I feel like that's going to be that's another key factor who could make a huge impact on this game on Friday.
You say quiet, Joe. Apart from he had one of the biggest dunks I've ever seen down at SGS. I don't want to talk about it really, but it was disgusting.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
Connor got pretty hyped after that, didn't he? I think
he did have a technical foul, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
I
was like,
I
think I was on comms for that game, and it was like, I understand.
Yes, you was.
I understand that giving a technical foul because you see players get a bit hyped, but just let them play.
Let them play. Like that was huge. Just let it happen.
Like that was that's a really top play, and then to have to break it up and then shoot free throws after it kind of broke up the momentum a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That call enabled you to win that game, which we were clearly on track to win.
You never know, eh? You never know. Fellas, before we get to our new segment, Dan, we can take a quick look at the league table on screen behind us, and we spoke about how important this race for second is. I mean, you look at London Lions sort of running away with it. They can actually win the league potentially on Friday night if results do go their way. They can lift the title if they defeat Surrey Scorchers, which is the Sky Sports game. We'll get onto that later on.
Yeah.
And Bristol obviously playing Leicester. If Leicester defeat the Flyers and the Lions beat the Scorchers, they could lift the league title. If Flyers do win on Friday, Sam, there's a very real possibility that London have a chance to lift the league title on our home court at SGS Wise Campus on Sunday. And you guys have some busy games coming up because, of course, you've played less games than most other teams in the league. So talk us through your sort of upcoming schedule and how what kind of tough challenges you also have ahead. Because there's a trip to Plymouth on Sunday, is that right?
Yeah, so we kind of started last night. We've got three games in 6 days. Plymouth last night, and then we've got Friday. We've got Bristol on Friday, haven't we? I'd forgotten. So no travelling involved with the big one. So and you're right, Sky was supposed to be here on Friday night and they switched it. So I guess they're expecting us to beat you. I guess that's what Sky's saying, isn't it? They expect us to beat you.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get to it. Let's get to it now because this it's been on my notes, so we might as well talk about it.
It's true.
Sam, it's time to bring back the rant of the week. Sam, are you going to play the sound? Sam,
Play
the sound.
Joel's rant of the week.
There we go. Right, time for my rant of the week. And of course, as we say, a big battle for second place. This game was actually picked for Sky Sports, the Riders v Flyers game on Friday night, and it was a hot topic on socials this past week because we were told last weekend that the game would be moved to the Copper Box because London Lions are playing Surrey Scorchers. If they win and Leicester win on Friday, they could lift the league title. So it's a big if. It's a big if. They need 2 results to go their way. So like surely like you have the more. I mean, I say more competitive. You never know in this league, but the battle for second is certainly a competitive race, and to have those 2 teams going head to head is definitely a more entertaining, a more meaningful game to the the battle for second rather than maybe a top versus bottom game in the league. And you could always cut to the champion if results do go London's way. You could always like throw to the championship being lifted in London at the end of it. So like, I don't understand the whole thing behind that. Obviously, they want to record the trophy lift, which is a completely understandable. Like, you want to see a team lift the trophy on TV. And you look back at like the TV games, and I know it's tricky with us because obviously Flyers, we play at home at SGS, and we can't have TV games at SGS because, I mean, you guys have been there. The space is tiny. You can't get all the TV kit in there, and they obviously want to shoot into crowds as well. But if you look back at the TV games over the last kind of 2 years, Flyers have played just 4 games on Sky in the last 2 years. We've only had 2 games this past season, which is tough. And I'll be keen to get your guys' thoughts on this in terms of moving the Sky game away and over to the Copper Box. Obviously, there is, one side of the argument, you do want to see the trophy potentially being lifted on telly. The other side of the argument, the battle for second place is, 2 highly competitive teams. What are your thoughts?
So I think my thoughts echo yours. What's going to be the better game for the viewers to watch? If you're a neutral, do you want to watch what is likely to be a very competitive game in Leicester on Friday, or do you want what most people will probably suspect going to be a bit of a blowout in the Copper Box? I know which I would rather watch, and absolutely I appreciate that they want to see the trophy lifted. You can still show that. There's nothing preventing that by following or tracking the game in Leicester, which I think will be a better game.
And I think we'll obviously talk about this in our news segment, so we won't go into it too much, but we've just seen an unbelievable final in the trophy, and like, so people, it's on their radar. It got posted on, we'll come to that, Joel, but it got posted, people potentially going to tune in now at the weekend because they're like, wow, this is on my radar, and I'm sure it'll still be a great game, but like, I feel like ours would be a really good competitive game to have on there, Joel. I don't know.
It'd be, especially how tasty the matchups have been in the last sort of 2 or 3 seasons between Flyers and Riders. I just feel like that's a no-brainer for a Sky game, surely. But it sparked a bit of debate on social. Obviously, we tweeted about it from Flyers, and we had a few quote tweets on it. The first one we got from George Townsend on Twitter, who quote tweeted and said, "Not too sure how I feel about this. Happened last year when Leicester failed to win the title, but surely the more competitive fixture will be at the Morningside. I do get it in terms of the potential trophy lift and everything, but shrug emoji." So that was from George on Twitter, who is a keen Flyers fan. Shout out, George. Got another tweet here from Pablo Cheeks, who hosts the Below the Rim podcast, and he quote tweeted and said, "The flagship team could lift the title, but sacrificing a potentially good competitive game for a blowout title lift, I mean, that's a bit tough. It's not guaranteed to be a blowout here. You got to remember, it's Surrey versus London, but anything can happen in this league. Why not have the better game live and cut to the Copper Box for the title celebrations?" That last bit is the bit that I completely agree with. So interesting thoughts there from some I was going to say some Flyers fans, but I know Pablo Cheeks is a die-hard Plymouth City Patriots fan, so interesting there. But do let us know your thoughts. If you want to get involved in the conversation, you can tweet at Bristol Flyers. Let us know your thoughts and join in the conversation with fellow Flyers fans. Interesting topic. And Sam, that is my rant of the week. Obviously, fellas, thanks a lot for joining us for our sort of big preview. Hopefully fans have kind of learned more about the opposition camp, a bit of behind the scenes action, who to watch out for, etc. Before you guys go, I've got a couple of things that we need to do. The first one is that we actually have a game on Sunday, and I don't know if you guys listen to the Bristol Flyers podcast, but we have a segment here on the podcast called Word of the Week, and we every week when we have a home game, we spin our wheel, which is over there. We add words to the wheel. Whichever word it lands on, I have to try and squeeze into the commentary for that weekend weekend's game. And obviously, we have a space available on our wheel right now. So we would like the two of you to come up with a potential word to add to our wheel, which we will spin at the end of this podcast. What do you think?
We anticipated this, so we and we thought we kind of we dived into our Scrabble dictionary, didn't we?
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. And we thought, should we give him something that's worth 50 points off the Scrabble, or should we go with something easier? So we've got two options, I guess. Do you want the 50-word Scrabble points?
Let's hear option A and let's hear option B, and we'll make a decision.
Well, the difficult word is oxymoron.
Brilliant. Okay.
Joel actually puts the moron in oxymoron, so.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate that. How about option B? What's option B, fellas?
I guess the more. Well, actually, we wanted to. Could we subvert it? We were wanting to insert a phrase rather than a word, and the phrase we came up with. What was it, Greg?
Delpesh for 3.
Delpesh for 3.
We need him to get an and one play. An and one play, and then we're good.
That'd be amazing. I'll tell you what, I think I did see Delpesh shoot a 3 at the end of that Loughborough game. Right at the end, when the game was over, he did shoot a 3 at the end.
It went in.
No, he didn't make it. He didn't make it, but he did shoot it, so that would have been
Were you
perfect.
doing the commentary?
No.
The commentary?
It wasn't. No. It was. I think it was Michael Hansen-Morris did the commentary for that one.
You just have to wait till about 5 minutes in, and you go Delpesh for 3 rebounds.
Looking down the.
There you go.
there we go. I'll tell you what. I will take Delpesh for 3, and I'll add it to the wheel. There's no guarantee that it will land on Delpesh for 3 this week, but I'll add it to the wheel, and whichever word it lands on, we will do for this week. We'll spin it at the end of the podcast.
Love that.
Fellas, thanks so much for joining us on our little podcast crossover episode. We're going to let you guys head off. There was one more thing I was going to do. Oh, yes, predictions. I was going to ask for your predictions for the game on Friday.
I guess it's a no-brainer. We're going to win by 25.
That's outrageous.
I think. Well, you got to look at the form. Home team's going to win. That's us. We're going to score 91 points.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
Someone's scoring
91.
And we'll allow you to score anything 90 and under.
Sam, okay, so we got 91 to something to Leicester. Sam, what are you thinking for predictions, mate?
I am thinking a Jelani Watson-Gale 50-point game.
Ouch.
You've heard it here first. No, I'm joking. I don't know. I can't call it, but I'm buzzing. I think Flyers are going to clinch it, I'm afraid, guys. That's just what I think.
I mean, I think if you're asking me, I'm going with a 5-point Flyers win, 91 to 86.
Love that.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
It's got to be. But fellas, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. Before we let you go, just give us a little plug for your podcast. Where can people find you along for the ride?
Yeah, so on all the usual podcast platforms, we don't do video. We're not set up for that, but
when we say that, we mean our faces, not the camera.
Yes, yeah. We haven't got the hair, the youthful looks, that California surfer look. We've got none of that. So Spotify, Apple, the usual places.
Amazing.
Great stuff. Well, fellas, thanks so much for joining us on our podcast episode this week. We'll let you go, but I'm sure we'll see you down at the game on Friday. And we'll see you there.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much,
See you
fellas.
Friday.
Take care. See you later.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Sam, how cool was that?
I love that. And I do need to give a big shout out to producer Dan right now, because honestly, this has been a logistical nightmare to get going, to get it all working. We've got you can't see it, but we've got 2 separate microphones here. One for that you can listen to, and then this other microphone was the guys were hearing us go through. It's all I don't understand it. I'm not sure Joe understands it, but Dan, we do appreciate you. Thank you so much.
He's an absolute legend. I mean, I literally just turn up, make some notes, and start talking, and Dan pushes all the buttons behind the scenes, makes it all work. He's like, what's the plan for this week, fellas? And I'll be like, we're doing a V-Mix call with the Leicester Riders podcast. Good luck. And he's like, I'll make it work. And he's just like doing his magic.
I think we need to get producer Dan a Christmas present, Joel, when it comes around to it.
Oh, 100%. 100%. 100%. Sam, right, it's time for us to do our usual podcasty bits. So we've got to take a look at this week's news.
You're listening to the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
Right, time to take a look at what's been going on up and down the BBL this week. And of course, with no games for the Flyers at the weekend, focus turned to the BBL Trophy Final.
Oh my sweet mother, that was unbelievable.
Insane. I don't think you could have written a better ending for a neutral support. If you're just a neutral watching that game, what an incredible game that was to watch. If it's your first time watching BBL or anything, and if you haven't seen that what happened at the end of this game, go online right now. What on earth are you doing? Go check out that clip of David Sloan knocking down that game-winning 3.
It wasn't just a game-winning 3. Like, they had it on the wing. He passed it to a big man who threw it between his legs. Sloan got it back, drove for the hoop, chucks it out to the wing again to Onwas, who shot fakes on the 3-point line, relocation to the corner for Sloan, outside the 3-point line, shoots it, the buzzer goes, and it is the clean, if you watch the slow motion, the ball's moving, like the rotating perfectly, nothing but net, and it is the sweetest finish to a game I've seen in a long time, Joel.
Incredible. And not only fantastic for the league, because the league gets a moment like that fans will remember forever. And you look at where they are right now as a league, they're trying to find potential investors. Like, that's the one clip you got to show. Like, look at what it means. 6,000 fans packed out there at the Emirates Arena. Like, the majority of those being Caledonia fans, because of course it being in Scotland. And great scenes on the buzzer to lift the title. I don't know if you saw, they had this like sword they brought out when they celebrated the title. You see them bring out the sword?
No, I didn't see that.
This like massive sword, which I think the owner gave to the team as like a gift that represented like being a gladiator, and they brought it out when they won the title, which is really good to see.
Did you see the? I don't know what his name is. Is he like the Mike Edkins equivalent of their team? Who when they went in, there's a tweet and he just starts running around the. It's the GM, is it? They start running around the arena.
Quickest 200 meters you ever see in your life. Go check it out. Shout out Sean Skelly. Massive game. And obviously it's good for the Caledonia Gladiators program, who of course have got new owners. The first title they've won under the new ownership, the first year under the new ownership and the new club name. Obviously their announced plans for their new 6,000 home arena, which are coming to life. So, everything going in the right direction for them. And to cap it off with the league title, trophy championship. Amazing. So really good game of basketball. Jeremiah Bailey named finals MVP, 16 points, 8 rebounds, 5 players in double figures for the Glads. They ended that 20-year drought without championship.
Love that.
Many congratulations to Caledonia Glads. Other news we have to get to. 2 Flyers juniors have both been named in the England Under-16 squad ahead of the upcoming Four Nations tournaments. And one of those Flyers juniors we've actually had on the podcast very recently, haven't we? None other than Corey Hill.
Yeah, if you watch the UE away day, what was it, for when they were doing the playoff game, yeah, and we had the boys in and they were on the podcast then. But he is unbelievable, Joel. I'm telling you right now. I'm so glad he's been picked, and let's see how he gets on.
Yeah, and Charlie Woodman, also for the England Under-16s girls, who's been absolutely killing it with the junior girls program. She's been stepping up with the Div 1 women's team as well. As an under-16, so amazing to see. The future certainly is bright for Flyers basketball, and 2 players named in the England squad. It's great to see.
Any of those games going to be streamed, do we know?
I believe they will be. I remember the Four Nations tournament was streamed last year on Basketball England's YouTube channel. The games, they'll take on the other home nations and Ireland across April 5th and April 6th. I'm not sure where the games actually are being taken place. However, I'm pretty sure there'll be a live stream for them, so do keep your eyes peeled. If we do hear about it, we'll tweet it over at Bristol Flyers. Other news to get through here, Sam. BBL playoff tickets. As we say, the playoffs are fast approaching, and obviously Flyers clinched their place in the playoffs, the earliest they've ever clinched a playoff berth. And although we don't know who our opponent will be, we don't know when exactly the game will be, but I believe we're announcing playoff ticket information on Thursday, which if you're listening to the podcast on Wednesday, will be tomorrow. If you're listening to the podcast on Thursday, the playoff ticket information will already be out. So do keep your eyes peeled for that. Obviously, it's an unknown opponent over a 2-legged playoff quarterfinal, which is like aggregate score. Don't get me started on that rant of the week. Between Friday, April 20th, so the home leg will take place between Friday, April 28th and Sunday, April 30th. The date we're expecting the home game to take place is still TBC, but it's expected to take place on Sunday, April 30th with a 4 p.m. tip-off. So we're putting that down as the proposed date. That is the date we're anticipating it to be, but it could change depending on who we face. So tickets will still be available to buy for that game, and if they are then if the date does change, tickets are valid for the new date as well. And once the new date is confirmed and you can't make that date, then you can always get a refund through support services. So make sure you get your tickets, because it will be the hottest ticket in town. And if tickets sell for the playoff game like they've been selling for our regular season games, Sam, they are going to shoot like hotcakes.
Well, I don't want to create hype that shouldn't be there, because I think the hype should be there anyway. But last season, when we got through to when we beat Manchester and got through to the semi-finals, I think those tickets sold out in 30 hours.
It did. Full, all 750 sold out in under 30 hours.
And that was a stress for us because we weren't expecting it, but that could happen again, couldn't it, Joel?
Well, we are coming prepared this time. We are doing not one, but two priority periods. We're going to have a 48-hour window for 24-hour window for Flyers season ticket holders and members to get first access to buy tickets. So if you are a season ticket holder member, you can guarantee your seat straight away. Then Bears and City season ticket holders and members will get a chance to buy tickets. So if you are a City or Bears season ticket holder, you can get them before they go on general sale. The dates will be announced in the comms that goes out with the ticket information. So make sure you head to the website bristolflyers.co.uk to find out more. Speaking of playoffs, if you want to get your hands on some playoff tickets, we've got some competitions running online. And we've got a great competition that we actually launched this morning in partnership with our elite partners, WebGains. It's the WebGains Never Stop Learning Challenge. And basically, we are asking junior fans to record a video of themselves taking on one of our player challenges, upload it to the Bristol Sport Foundation app for their chance to win a pair of playoff tickets, one adult, one child. And this is another big prize here, a free Flyers summer holiday camp for one day.
Wow.
Which, by the way, holiday camp spaces, we spoke to Rodney on the podcast a few weeks ago, they also sell like hotcakes. So not only can you get your hands on 2 playoff tickets, which would be the hottest ticket in town, you can also get yourself hooked up to a Flyers holiday camp for the kids. Amazing.
I don't know if you're the same, Job. I've never actually bought a hot cake.
Well, it's the phrase, isn't it? Like hot cake.
No, I appreciate that. I'm just letting you know. I've never done it.
You know, if a set of hot cakes come out of the oven, would you not be super keen to get one and snap it up really quickly before they get cold?
Yeah, no, I would. I'd be so keen. I'm just letting you know. Fun fact. Never bought one.
Great stuff. Thanks for that, mate. Right. Well, here's a look at Tevin Ollison doing his shooting challenge. We actually uploaded this video to socials this morning. He's doing 3 drills. The first one here, some form shooting. Look at that form from Tevin Ollison. So we're basically asking kids to recreate Tevin Ollison's shooting workout and upload it to the Bristol Sport Foundation app. We'll get some of the best entries. We might run them here on the podcast. Why not? So if you've got a great entry, you could feature right here on the Bristol Flyers podcast. The last drill is around the world. So you see Tevin Ollison knocking down threes across the top of the 3-point line. Nice little edit there because he missed the third one.
Don't tell anyone.
But make sure you download the Bristol Sport Foundation app today. Upload your entry for your chance to win. Great. What do you reckon, Sam? Do you reckon you could put an entry in for that? What are your skills like?
Yeah, I'm gonna do one, Joe. I'm gonna get a video of me doing the 3-point shooting around the. Then we'll see how I get on. But I won't edit it. Okay.
No, just download. Yeah, just non-edited. Just all the bricks in there as well. Upload it to the Bristol Sport Foundation app, and you could win some great Flyers prizes. And that's pretty much it for this week's news. That's everything going up and down the league. This week. We've got one more thing we've got to do, Sam, though, before we wrap up this podcast.
What's that, Jolie?
And it's time for us to bring on the wheel.
You're listening to the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
Right. Well, thanks to the help of the Along for the Ride podcast, we have to add Delpesh for 3 to our wheel. So without further ado, Sam, I'm going to go grab the wheel. Shall we bring on the wheel? Oh.
Why don't you write D4-3? So, and then we know exactly what that means, yeah?
D for 3?
Yeah, like Delpesh for 3.
There we go. Right, you've got headphones back on. D for 3.
Here we go. Add it on.
Hang on, I've got cables all over the place here. I'm trying to get around.
There's a lot of admin involved in this
Here we go.
spinning of the wheel situation. Okay, Del Pesh for shooting 3. Are you ready to spin that wheel, Joel?
Yeah, should we give it a little... Oh, hang on. It's time to give the wheel a spin. Here we go then. Here comes the
That's
wheel.
good timing. Oh, no, it's still going.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no way. No way. Evaristo.
Evaristo.
That's courtesy of Coach Kapoulas. It means thank you very much in Greek. And that is the word for Friday's game against the London Lions. No!
Sunday's game, sorry, but that is absolutely incredible, Joel.
Evaristo.
Evaristo.
Oh, wow. How on earth am I going to get that in, Sam?
Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe if Coach does something that you got to thank him for, maybe say it, Joel.
Evaristo. There we go. That is the word of the week for Sunday's game against the London Lions. And you can watch that. You can watch me try and squeeze that in on the BBL YouTube channel at 4 p.m.
This is the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
Well, that'll be an interesting one to squeeze in, wouldn't it? How am I going to get that in, Sam? We'll find out.
I'm so happy with that. That's so good.
Great stuff. Right, well, I think that wraps it up for this week's episode of the Flyers Podcast. Shout out to Greg and Mark from the Along for the Ride podcast over on from Leicester Riders. I don't think they'll get many converts over from Bristol Flyers fans, but obviously good to give them a plug as well. And great to have them on. They're great guys, and a bit of fun there as well with your with your hair bants, Sam.
Yeah, appreciate it. I don't mind it, Joel. I'm here for it.
We've got, like you say, we've got a couple of great episodes in the pipeline for these next few weeks. So we've been working hard behind the scenes to try and get some great guests. We may have a club legend dropping on the podcast very soon, and I can tell you, but I can't reveal too much yet. The plans for our season finale are building with rapid pace. They are building at rapid pace, Sam. The season finale, if we can make this work, which I think we can make this work, it will be amazing. So watch this space. It will be our season finale. I believe it's going to take place after the playoff final has finished. So it'll be a complete wrap of the season. And it's going to be, I can tell you, it's going to be in a special location. But that's all I can tell you.
You're so cryptic, Joel.
Once I've got a few more conversations to have with producer Dan. I was going to say producer Fran then. Producer Dan and the team at Brandvox. But if we can make this work, I think it could be the best episode of the season. And it's going to be our last one of the season before we take a short break with Admin's Glasgow trip. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled. It will be some good episodes dropping very soon. We are available on all major podcast providers and on YouTube. So if you please recommend us to a friend, like and comment and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and leave us a rating and review if you're listening on the Apple Podcasts. Sam, anything else you want to add before we wrap up this show?
Not this week, Joel. I'm very happy with that. Very excited about the next few weeks of episodes we've got coming up. But apart from that, mate, I think that's the end.
Awesome. Thanks to you at home for listening or watching on YouTube. He's Sam. I'm Joel. We will see you same time next week here on the Bristol Flyers Podcast.